Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha. At first, I offer my humble prayers in the lotus feet of Lord Shri Radha Krishna. I also extend warm greetings and respect to all of you. Today, from the scripture Shri Vivekcudamani, composed by Adi Shri Sankaracarya ji, we will be listening chapter number 7. The holy words from the scripture are as follows. The seeker after liberation must carefully purify the mind. When this is purified, liberation is as easy of access as a fruit on the palm of one's hand. He who by means of one-pointed devotion to liberation roots out the attachment to sense objects, renounces all actions, and with faith in the real Brahman regularly practices hearing and the like, succeeds in purging the Rajsika nature of the intellect. The mental sheath also cannot be the Supreme Self because it has a beginning and an end, is subject to modification, is characterized by pain and suffering, and is an object, whereas the subject can never be identified with the objects of knowledge. The buddhi with its modification and the organs of knowledge forms the Vijnanamaya Kosha or knowledge sheath of the agent, having their characteristics which are the cause of man's transmigration. This knowledge sheath, which seems to be followed by a reflection of the power of the chitta, is a modification of the prakriti, is endowed with the function of knowledge, and always wholly identifies itself with the body, organs, and the like. It is without beginning, characterized by egoism, is called the jiva, and carries on all the activities on the relative plane. Through previous desires, it performs good and evil actions and experiences their results. Being born in various bodies, it comes and goes up and down. It is this knowledge sheath that has the waking, dream, and other states, and experiences joy and grief. It always mistakes the duties, functions, and attributes of the orders of life which belong to the body as its own. The knowledge sheath is exceedingly effulgent, owing to its close proximity to the Supreme Self, which, identifying itself with it, suffers transmigration through delusion. It is therefore a superimposition on the Self. The self-effulgent Atman, which is pure knowledge, shines in the midst of the pranas within the heart. Though immutable, it becomes the agent and experience owing to its superimposition, the knowledge sheath. Though the self of everything that exists, this Atman itself, assuming the limitations of the buddhi and wrongly identifying itself with this totally unreal entity, looks upon itself as something different, like earthen jars from the clay of which they are made. Owing to its connection with the superimpositions, the Supreme Self, even though naturally perfect and eternally unchanging, assumes the qualities of the superimpositions and appears to act just as they do, like the changeless fire, assuming the modifications of the iron which it turns red hot. The disciple questioned, be it through delusion or otherwise, that the Supreme Self has come to consider itself as the jiva. The superimposition is without beginning, and that which has no beginning cannot be supposed to have an end either. Therefore, the jivahood of the soul also must have an end, and its transmigration must continue forever. How then can there be liberation for the soul? Kindly enlighten me on this point, O revered Master. The teacher replied, thou hast rightly questioned, O learned man, listen therefore attentively. The imagination which has been conjured up by delusion can never be accepted as a fact. But for delusion there can be no connection of the self, which is unattached, beyond activity and formless, with the objective world, as in the case of blueness, and the like with reference to the sky. The jivahood of the Atman, the witness which is beyond qualities and beyond activity, and which is realized within as knowledge and bliss absolute, has been superimposed by the delusion of the buddhi and is not real. And because it is by nature an unreality, it ceases to exist when the delusion is gone. It exists only so long as the delusion lasts, being caused by indiscrimination due to an illusion. The rope is supposed to be the snake only so long as the mistake lasts, and there is no more snake when the illusion has vanished. Similar is the case here. Avidya or nascence and its effects are likewise considered as beginningless, but with the rise of Vidya or realization, the entire effects of Avidya, even though beginningless, are destroyed together with their root. Like dreams on waking up from sleep, it is clear that the phenomenal universe, even though without beginning, is not eternal like the previous non existence. Previous non-existence, even though beginningless, is observed to have an end. So the jivahood, which is imagined to be in the Atman through its relation with superimposed attributes, such as the buddhi, is not real, whereas the other is essentially different from it. The relation between the Atman and the buddhi is due to a false knowledge. The cessation of that superimposition takes place through perfect knowledge and by no other means. Perfect knowledge, according to the Shrutis, consists in the realization of the identity of the individual soul and Brahman. This realization is attained by a perfect discrimination between the self and the non-self. Therefore, one must strive for the discrimination between the individual soul and the eternal self. Just as the water, which is very muddy, again appears as transparent water when the mud is removed, so also the Atman also manifests its undimmed luster when the taint has been removed. When the unreal ceases to exist, this very individual soul is definitely realized as the eternal self. Therefore, one must make it a point to completely remove things like egoism from the eternal self. This knowledge sheath or Vijnanamaya Kosha that we have been speaking of cannot be the Supreme Self for the following reasons: because it is subject to change, insentient, is a limited thing, an object of the senses, and is not constantly present. An unreal thing cannot indeed be taken for the real Atman. The blissful sheath or Anandamaya Kosha is that modification of nascence which manifests itself catching a reflection of the Atman, which is bliss absolute, whose attributes are pleasure and the rest, and which appears in view when some object agreeable to oneself presents itself. It makes itself spontaneously felt by the fortunate during the fruition of their virtuous deeds, from which every corporeal being derives great joy without the least effort. The blissful sheath has its fullest play during profound sleep, while in the dreaming and wakeful state it has only a partial manifestation, occasioned by the sight of agreeable objects and so forth. Nor is the blissful sheath the Supreme Self, because it is endowed with the changeful attributes, is a modification of the Prakriti, is the effect of past good deeds, and embedded in the other sheaths which are modifications. When all the five sheaths have been eliminated by the reasoning on Shruti's passages, what remains as the culminating point of the process is the witness, the knowledge, absolute, the Atman. Thus conclude chapter number 7 from the scripture Vivekcudamani. Thank you for listening. Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha.